barn door swung open. Charlotte's hand moved to her rifle. "Show yourself," she called, her voice echoing in the shadows. The dim light flickered as the sun dipped behind the brimstone range, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Dust motes danced in the fading light, swirling like lost memories. She stepped inside, her boots crunching on the dirt floor. The air was thick with the smell of hay and something else, an underlying scent of desperation. "Billy," she whispered, hoping the paint horse was still there. For weeks he'd been skittish and aloof, but she couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. As she moved deeper into the barn, she caught sight of him in the far corner, his large, dark eyes watching her warily. "Hey there, boy," she coaxed, extending her hand. Doubt crept in like a shadow. "It's just me." The space between them felt heavy, charged with unspoken tension. She could see the muscle in his flank twitch as he took a hesitant step back, ready to bolt at the slightest provocation. "Don't you trust me?" Charlotte murmured, an ache twisting in her heart. She wanted to reach out, to earn his trust, but trust had burned her before, just like the ranch, now a shadow of its former self. "We're both lost, you and me," she admitted softly, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. Billy's nostrils flared as he scented the air, his ears swiveling to catch every sound. The wind whistled through the cracks in the barn, carrying the faint cries of birds settling for the night. Charlotte felt her throat tighten. "What's it going to take for you to let me in?" The horse backed into the corner, eyes wild. One wrong move and he'd bolt. Or worse. "Come on, don't be like that," she pleaded. "I know we can figure this out together." Her palms were clammy as she approached slowly, each step a dance of patience and determination. He shifted nervously, and she could feel the pulse of adrenaline racing through him. "Just a little closer," she whispered, closing her eyes for a moment to focus. The rough wood of the barn felt solid against her back, grounding her in a world that seemed to be spinning away from her. The ranch was on the brink of losing everything. She could sense it in the air, heavy and oppressive. Then, with a cautious nuzzle, Billy's muzzle brushed against her palm. Startled, Charlotte looked down, her breath catching in her throat. For the first time in months, she smiled, a glimmer of hope lighting her heart. "See, we're not so different," she said softly, heart swelling with warmth. "You and me, we can still fight." Before she could take another step closer, the barn door creaked ominously. A figure loomed in the doorway, silhouetted against the fading light. Charlotte's heart sank. "Who's there?" she demanded, raising her rifle instinctively. "Just me, Charlotte," called out Sam, her neighbor and friend. "Thought I'd check on you." "Heard the storm's coming." "The storm!" She glanced outside, noticing the dark clouds gathering on the horizon. Panic twisted in her stomach. The barn door swung open, and Charlotte Abbott stepped inside, her heart racing. "Show yourself," she called, hoping the wild horse wouldn't bolt before she could earn its trust. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light, swirling like the uncertainty inside her. The air was thick with the smell of hay and something else. Fear. She moved cautiously toward the corral where the stallion had been hiding for days. It snorted, its powerful body tensed, eyes wide and wary. Just a few more steps, she thought, willing herself to stay calm. "Easy now, big fella," she whispered, reaching out a hand, palm open. "I ain't gonna hurt you." But the stallion backed into a corner, muscles trembling, ready to flee at the slightest provocation. Charlotte felt a pang of recognition. She'd been just like that horse once, wary, ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. "I know what it's like to be afraid," she murmured, fighting against her own racing pulse. She took a breath, focusing on the warmth of the sun streaming through the barn window. "Listen to me. I just want to help." The horse tossed its head, snorting loudly, shaking a thick mane that caught the light. Then, a sound from outside, the rumble of approaching hoofbeats. Oh no, she thought, anxiety tightening in her chest. The last thing she needed was trouble from the townsfolk who had already written her off as a fool for buying the ranch. She hurriedly looked back at the horse, panic rising. We need to trust each other, now. But the stallion remained still, eyes locked on the door, muscles coiled like springs, ready to bolt. Charlotte understood its fear. She felt it too. Please, she begged softly, stepping closer. I'm not your enemy. Trust me. The sound grew louder, echoing through the barn walls. A group of riders. She could hear their laughter, could picture the disdainful looks they'd throw her way, and the mocking words they'd use. Ain't nobody gonna save you now, Charlotte, they'd say. She clenched her fists, pushing back the overwhelming tide of memories. Not again, she whispered to herself. I won't let them take this from me. The horse shifted, nostrils flaring, drawing nearer as if sensing her desperation. That's it, boy, she urged, just a little closer. With a tentative step, the stallion edged out of the corner, and Charlotte's breath caught in her throat. Yes, that's it. She reached out a hand, feeling the warmth radiating from his powerful frame. In that moment, the barn door creaked loudly, swinging wider as the riders burst inside, laughter echoing off the old wooden beams. Charlotte's heart sank. What do you want? She snapped, fighting against the sudden surge of anger. One of the men, Bart Sullivan, stepped forward, smirking as he assessed the scene. Looks like you're trying to make friends with that beast, Charlotte. Good luck with that. His friends laughed, spurring the stallion to rear up in surprise. Don't scare him, she shouted, stepping protectively in front of the horse. He's just scared like the rest of us. The barn door swung open, creaking on its hinges. Charlotte Abbott stepped inside, dust motes swirling in the late afternoon light. You in here, Billy, she called, her voice echoing off the weathered wood. Silence answered her back, thick and heavy, like the weight of the drought pressing down on the land. She walked deeper into the barn, past old saddles and rusty tools, the smell of hay and leather mingling with the musty scent of neglect. The air felt stagnant, as if even the wind had given up hope. She reached the far corner where the shadows lay thick. Billy stood there, a powerful paint horse, but his coat was dull, no longer gleaming in the sunlight. The look in his eyes sent a shiver down Charlotte's spine. They were filled with a mix of fear and something deeper, something she couldn't quite place. You're okay, big fella, she murmured, extending her hand slowly. He took a step back, ears pinned, heart racing. I'm not going to hurt you. The silence between them stretched long, filled with unspoken fears. She moved closer, her heart racing too. She wanted to reach out, to earn his trust, but doubt clawed at her. She recalled the way things used to be, her father's laughter, the ranch bustling with life. Now, it felt like a ghost town. Why won't you let me in? She whispered, letting her hand drop to her side. I know you've been through hell, but we can help each other. Billy backed into the corner, eyes wild. One wrong move, and he'd bolt, or worse. She could feel the heat rising in her chest. Come on, Billy, she pleaded, her voice cracking. She chose to stay. I need you. This ranch needs you. I ain't got no one else. There was a desperation in her tone, raw and real. She moved slowly, crouching low, hoping to seem less intimidating. Just a touch, that's all I need, she coaxed, palm open. Just one touch to let you know it's safe. As if hearing her words, he stepped forward, still cautious. His large, intelligent eyes studied her, and for a fleeting moment, Charlotte thought she saw understanding reflected back. Then he hesitated, snorting softly, as if weighing the risk. I know trust is hard, she said, softly, almost to herself. Believe me, I know. Timothy's words from earlier flickered in her mind. Trust the horse. She had thought he was naive then, but now she was desperate for any sign of hope. Billy moved closer, his soft muzzle brushing against her palm. Charlotte closed her eyes, inhaling the scent of hay mixed with the earthy musk of the horse. It was a fleeting moment, but it stirred something deep within her, a yearning for connection. Rusty's nose touched her palm. For the first time in months, Charlotte smiled. This was a victory, a spark of light against the looming darkness. But just as hope bubbled to the surface, a loud sound cut through the stillness, the distant thunder of hoofbeats. Charlotte's heart plummeted. She rushed to the door, peering out into the glaring sunlight. Shadows on the horizon grew larger, and her stomach twisted with dread. "Who's there?" Timothy knelt on the canyon floor, his hands digging through the dirt. "This is it, Billy," he whispered, heart racing as water seeped into the hole he'd just unearthed. The paint horse stood close, watching with those intelligent eyes, as if sensing the importance of the moment. "Where have you been hiding this?" Timothy murmured, brushing away the last clumps of dry earth. He could feel the dampness growing, the coolness of water that promised life in this parched valley. "You knew all along, didn't you?" Billy nickered softly, nudging Timothy with his nose, urging him onward. Timothy's heart swelled with gratitude. "You're something special, Billy. A real miracle worker." He glanced around the canyon, the steep walls looming like watchful giants. "I never thought I'd find anything here, not after all this drought." But doubts gnawed at him. What if he was wrong? What if this wasn't the answer? He stood, brushing dirt from his knees. He took a step back, shaking his head, feeling the weight of uncertainty. What if there's no real water? Just a trick of the land. Billy shifted closer, grounding him. "You trust me, boy," Timothy said, swallowing hard. "But trust ain't easy, especially not after everything." He felt the tension in the air, the silence pressing in like a storm cloud ready to burst. He needed a sign, something to push through the fear that gripped his heart. Suddenly, a loud rustling broke the stillness. Timothy's head snapped up, the hairs on the back of his neck prickled. "What was that?" He scanned the canyon, breath shallow. "Show yourself," he called out, voice steady despite the uncertainty. Billy whinnied nervously, stepping backward. The horse backed into the boulders, eyes wide and wild. "Calm down, boy," Timothy said, raising his hands slowly. "It's just us here." But he could feel the tension radiating from Billy. One wrong move, and the horse would bolt, or worse, lead him into danger. Just then, Timothy heard the faintest echo of voices, a distance too close for comfort. His heart raced. "Did you hear that?" he asked Billy, who was now pawing the ground, instinct kicking in. "We need to get out of here." He turned back toward the path they'd come, scanning for any sign of movement. The canyon walls felt like they were closing in, and the shadows seemed to dance with menace. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "This isn't the end, right? We can still fix this." Billy nudged him again, affirming their bond. In that moment, Timothy realized the connection they shared was deeper than he ever understood. They were in this together. Then he heard them. Footsteps crunching over the dry ground, laughter echoing taunting, at least 6 of them, coming fast. "Billy, we gotta move," Timothy said urgently. He turned, heart pounding, as he felt the rush of danger sweeping into the canyon. With one last glance at the damp soil glistening beneath the fading sunlight, he knew he couldn't let fear win. "Come on, boy!" The barn door creaked open, sending a cloud of dust swirling in the shafts of late afternoon light. Timothy stood at the entrance, hands on his hips, surveying the disarray inside. "Billy!" he called, voice echoing against the wooden walls. Silence answered him, thick as the dust motes dancing in the beams. He stepped inside, the familiar smell of hay and leather tugging at his heartstrings. "You in here, boy?" he asked again, scanning the dim corners. His fingers brushed over the rough wood of a forgotten saddle, memories flooding back of time spent with his father. That old saddle had seen countless rides, worn down by years of love and labor. A soft whinny broke the stillness, drawing his attention to the far end of the barn. Billy stood there, eyes wide and anxious, a sheen of sweat glistening on his chestnut coat. "Hey there, fella. What's got you spooked?" Timothy approached slowly, hands outstretched, feeling the warmth radiating from the horse's powerful frame. Billy danced back, snorting, tail flicking nervously. "Whoa, easy there. I ain't gonna hurt you." Timothy's heart raced. The bond they'd been building felt fragile in this moment. He had wanted to trust, but trust had burned him before. With the drought choking the valley and the pressure from Mountain Crest looming over him like a storm cloud, Timothy feared losing his only ally. "Come on, buddy. Let me help you," he coaxed softly, inching closer. He reached out a hand, his palm open and inviting. Billy hesitated, then took a cautious step forward, nostrils flaring as he sniffed Timothy's fingers. "There you go," Timothy said, relief flooding through him. "That's right. We're in this together." But then Billy backed into the corner, eyes wild. One wrong move and he'd bolt, or worse. What remained was possibility. Timothy's heart raced. No, it's okay, boy. I'm not a threat." The tension hung thick in the air as Timothy fought to remain calm. He felt the weight of their shared struggle. The drought had drained everything around them, leaving only desolation and despair. The barn creaked around him, the boards groaning like the valley itself, suffering under the relentless sun. Timothy watched Billy, whose powerful frame trembled slightly, as if sensing the heaviness pressing down on them both. "Billy, listen. My father believed in you. I want to believe in you too. Help me find the water he said was here." Billy's gaze softened just a touch, the wildness ebbing away. He stepped forward again, nuzzling Timothy's palm gently. "See, we can do this." The warmth of Billy's breath filled Timothy with hope, but doubt lingered like the dust motes in the sunlight. Then Timothy recalled the letter, the words about trusting the land and the horse. "Maybe you know something we don't, huh?" he murmured, scratching behind Billy's ears, feeling the tension in the air shift. "Let's find out together." Just then, a distant rumble echoed through the valley, vibrating in Timothy's bones. What was that? He wondered aloud. The barn door swung open, and Timothy stepped inside, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the dusty floor. He paused, listening to the creaking wood and the soft rustle of hay as Billy, his paint horse, nickered softly from the far corner. Timothy's heart raced as he approached, the weight of uncertainty pressing down like the summer heat. "Hey there, boy," he said, reaching out a hand. "You've been waiting for me, haven't you?" Billy stepped closer, his dark eyes shining with an intelligence Timothy couldn't quite grasp. The horse nuzzled Timothy's palm, warm and soft, sending a rush of calm through him. "Yeah," Timothy sighed, the sound escaping him like a whisper. "I reckon we both need to figure this out." His voice trembled, the words barely escaping as he stroked Billy's neck, feeling the powerful muscles underneath the thick coat. But doubt clawed at his insides. Could he really trust this horse? After all, trusting people had only brought him pain. Billy stepped back slightly, ears flicking back as he watched Timothy with that unyielding gaze. It was as if the horse knew the storm raging within him. Timothy leaned against the barn wall, the rough wood scratching against his back as he took a breath, the musty smell of hay filling his nostrils. "What do you know?" he asked, his voice low, almost pleading. "What do you want me to see?" The horse shifted, moving toward the open corral gate. He pawed the ground impatiently, as if urging Timothy to follow. For a moment, Timothy hesitated. "I can't just let you run wild, Billy. There are dangers out there." Billy snorted, the sound sharp and insistent. Timothy could feel the pull of the outside world, a world where the drought ruled and despair hung heavy in the air. The land had been dying for years, and yet here was this horse, alive with purpose. Could he truly be a beacon of hope? Timothy took a step forward, moving to the gate. "All right, let's see what you're so eager to show me." As he opened the latch, the creaking echoed against the barn walls. The hot wind whipped past him, carrying the distant scent of sagebrush and earth. Billy bolted into the pasture, muscles rippling beneath his coat. Timothy mounted, the saddle creaking under their combined weight. "Easy now, boy," he called out, feeling exhilarated yet anxious. Together, they galloped across the dried remnants of grass, Timothy's heart racing in rhythm with Billy's powerful strides. But as they rode deeper into the valley, the reality of their situation loomed. The earth was parched, cracked like an old man's hands. A sense of urgency settled over Timothy. "We have to find water, don't we?" he murmured, almost to himself. Billy halted abruptly, ears perked. The horse shifted and then began to walk toward a narrow canyon, one Timothy had never dared to explore before. The walls of the canyon loomed over them, casting eerie shadows on the rocky ground. Timothy felt a chill creep up his spine. "This place feels different," he said quietly, "almost like it's hiding something." The barn door swung open, and Timothy's heart raced. "Billy, come here, boy," he called, scanning the dusky shadows. The air smelled of damp hay and sweat as he stepped inside. The paint horse stood in the far corner, eyes wide and flickering between fear and trust. "Timothy, I reckon you're finally back to face the music," came a voice from outside. It was Vanessa, perched on the fence rail, arms crossed and a mixture of concern and irritation lining her features. "I've got work to do," he replied tersely, not wanting to bring her worries into the barn. She had never believed in the ranch like he did, not after their father's passing. "Work? Or is it more like running away?" Vanessa shot back, her tone sharp as the edges of the evening sky. "You could still take that deal with Mountain Crest. You don't have to keep chasing ghosts." Timothy clenched his jaw. "This land ain't a ghost, it's my home. Dad believed in it, and so do I." "Believe all you want, but you're just digging your own grave," she warned, her voice softened by a hint of desperation. "You can't save what's already dead." He turned away, biting back the frustration that threatened to erupt. "You don't understand," he muttered, shoving the pitchfork deeper into the hay. But Billy stepped closer, nuzzling Timothy's arm with a gentle breath, grounding him. He could feel the warmth radiating from the horse, the roughness of his coat brushing against his skin. "It's all right, boy," he whispered, looking into those intelligent eyes. "I'm here now. We'll figure it out together." The horse snorted softly, as if responding to his promise. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it the distant sound of hoofbeats. Timothy's gut twisted as he looked towards the darkening horizon. What now? Then he heard it, an unmistakable whinny from the hills, a warning or a call. "Billy," he turned back to the horse. "We got to go check it out." But as he reached for the saddle, the sound of approaching riders grew louder, echoing through the stillness. Timothy's breath caught in his throat. "Get ready, boy," he murmured, heart pounding. The barn felt suddenly too small, the shadows too deep. "Don't you dare run," Timothy commanded softly, reaching out a hand. But the barn door creaked again, this time swinging wider. "Timothy!" Vanessa shouted from outside, her voice sharp with urgency. "You need to get out of there!" The air shifted, filled with tension and the scent of fresh leather as he caught sight of silhouettes forming outside. Fear won that round. Fear twisted within him, and he tightened his grip on the saddle. "Stay with me, Billy," he whispered, feeling the weight of their uncertain fate pressing down on him. Then, as the barn creaked in the evening wind, a dark figure stepped into the doorway, followed by another and another. They were riders, at least 6 of them. Coming fast. "Timothy, don't!" Vanessa called again, her voice barely a whisper against the impending storm. Billy shifted beside him, sensing the threat. The barn door swung open, and Timothy stepped inside, his heart pounding like a drum. Billy stood at the far end, his dark eyes wide with worry. "Hey there, boy," Timothy said softly, trying to steady his own racing pulse. "It's just me." Billy let out a soft whinny, the sound echoing in the empty space. The scent of dust and hay filled the air, and Timothy could almost taste the lingering smoke from the fire that had nearly consumed his home. He walked slowly toward the horse, careful not to startle him. "We're safe now," he reassured, "but I reckon we might not be for long." Timothy felt a knot in his stomach. Mountain Crest's threats loomed over him like dark clouds. He could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down, like a storm ready to break. "What's the plan, huh?" he asked, scratching Billy's neck as he approached. "We can't keep running." The horse leaned into Timothy, the warmth of his body a comfort against the chill of the barn. But even that couldn't chase away the creeping doubt. Timothy had come home hoping for a fresh start, yet all he seemed to find was trouble. "I wanted to believe we could make this work," he murmured, looking into Billy's intelligent eyes. "But what if it's all for nothing?" Billy nuzzled closer, his soft muzzle brushing Timothy's palm. "You understand, don't you?" Timothy said, sighing heavily. "You've been through hell, too." As he felt the power in the horse's sturdy frame, something stirred within him, resolve, perhaps, or just a flicker of hope. Just then, the wind howled through the barn, and Timothy froze. A noise carried on the breeze, the creaking sound of hooves on dry earth. "No, it can't be," he whispered, his heart racing again. He stepped closer to the open door, peering out into the fading light. And there they were, 3 men on horseback, silhouetted against the dusky sky. They rode like they owned the place, each one clearly an agent of Mountain Crest. Timothy's throat went dry. "Damn it," he muttered under his breath. He'd expected trouble, but this was worse than he'd imagined. Billy shifted nervously behind him, the horse's breath hot against Timothy's back. "I need you to trust me, boy," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We can't let them take what's ours." The hoofbeats drew closer, echoing like the ticking of a clock counting down to disaster. Timothy instinctively reached for the rifle propped against the wall, his hand trembling as he gripped the cold wood. "Stay behind me," he instructed Billy, feeling a surge of protectiveness. "Whatever happens, we face it together." The men stopped just outside the barn, their laughter sharp and cruel. Timothy could feel his heart thudding in his chest like a drum signaling battle. "You think you can save this ranch, Anderson?" one of them called, the voice dripping with mockery. "You ain't got what it takes." Timothy clenched his jaw, every muscle in his body tensed. "You don't know me," he called back, stepping further into the light. "I've got plenty of fight left in me." The lead rider smirked. Billy whinnied loud and urgent. "I reckon it's time to find out what you know," Timothy muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the dry earth, and the heat still clung to him like an old coat. Timothy stepped inside, the familiar smell of hay and leather wrapping around him. Dust motes danced in the last light of day. Billy stood in the corner, his dark eyes wide and alert. The horse shifted nervously, tossing his head. "Easy, boy," Timothy soothed, holding out his hand, palm up. "I ain't here to hurt you." Billy snorted, stepping back and bumping into a wall. "Don't run now. We've come too far for that." Timothy took a cautious step closer, feeling the rough wood beneath his fingers. He recalled the letter from his father, the words echoing in his mind. Trust the horse. But as much as he wanted to trust, doubt gnawed at him. He wanted to believe in Billy, in the hope of water, in the future of the ranch. Yet could he really count on a horse to show him the way? He felt an ache in his chest, a longing for connection that had eluded him since his father passed. "What do you want from me, huh?" he asked, voice trembling. Billy leaned forward, nuzzling Timothy's hand, his breath warm and reassuring. "Is it about that canyon? Show me where we can dig." Timothy felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. If he could just follow Billy's instincts, perhaps they'd find the water his father believed was there. The horse pawed at the ground, a sharp sound that echoed in the quiet barn. "You think you know something, don't you?" Timothy studied Billy's posture, the way he seemed to lean towards the door like he was ready to bolt. "But if I follow you, what if it leads to nothing?" Billy turned his head, eyes glinting with intelligence. Timothy clenched his jaw, remembering the despair that had hung over the ranch for years, the drought, the failed crops, and the looming threat of mountain crest. He shook his head, frustration bubbling to the surface. "I don't have time for this, Billy." But the horse nudged him again, as if urging him to reconsider. Timothy sighed, slumping against the wall. "I'm tired, boy. Tired of fighting for something that might not even be there." The moment hung heavy in the air. Billy stamped his hoof, a determined sound that rang clear as day. In that instant, Timothy knew he had to decide. Should he trust the horse, even if it felt like a leap into the unknown? A sudden gust of wind rattled the barn doors, sending dust swirling through the dim light. "All right," he relented, taking a deep breath. "Let's see what you got. Lead the way." He felt a rush of adrenaline as he opened the gate, stepping out into the fading light. The world outside felt vast and daunting. As they walked toward the canyon, every step sent a jolt of uncertainty through him. The creaking of the saddle echoed in the quiet, like the warning of a storm. The barn door swung open. "Show yourself," she called, her heart pounding as shadows danced around her. The wind howled through the creaky wooden beams, carrying whispers of a past she was trying to escape. Dust motes hung in the air, catching the fading light of day as it seeped through the cracks. In the corner of the barn, Rusty stood, his powerful frame silhouetted against the dim glow. He shifted uneasily, his intelligent eyes darting toward the open door. Charlotte lowered her weapon, exhaling slowly. "It's just us, boy," she whispered, stepping cautiously toward him. She could feel the rough wood beneath her fingertips and the gritty dust clinging to her clothes. Rusty took a tentative step forward, nostrils flaring as he caught her scent. "You ain't gonna hurt me," she murmured, though doubt nipped at her thoughts. She wanted to trust, but trust had burned her before, had cost her everything. "Easy now," she soothed, inching closer. "I'm not here to cause trouble." With trembling fingers, she reached out, her palm resting against the warm, soft muzzle. The connection sent a jolt through her, and she recalled the stories her father used to tell about the bond between horse and rider. "Can you feel it, Rusty? We're both lost in this world," she said quietly, her voice thick with emotion. The faint scent of hay mixed with the leather of her worn saddle filled her lungs. She wanted to believe that they could heal together, that they could find a way through the pain life had dealt them. Just then, a rustle outside snapped her back to reality. "What was that?" she whispered, her heart racing. Rusty shifted, ears pricked. "Stay close," she urged, every muscle in her body tensed. The wind picked up, carrying an ominous chill through the barn, echoing her unease. "Please, let it just be the wind," she breathed, glancing toward the door. Her mind raced with memories of the townsfolk's whispers, their judgment heavy on her shoulders. "They think I'm crazy for even trying," she muttered, frustration bubbling inside her. "But what do they know?" The atmosphere thickened as hoofbeats sounded in the distance, heavy and purposeful. Charlotte's heart sank. "Oh no, not now," she said, panic gnawing at her gut. Rusty let out a low whinny, sensing her distress. She took a deep breath, pushing back against her fear. "No, we're not running this time." With renewed determination, she stepped to the door, ready to face whatever came. The setting sun cast long shadows that flickered like ghosts in the failing light. She could see silhouettes approaching, 6 riders, galloping hard, their intentions unclear. "Stay behind me, Rusty," she said, gripping the rifle tightly. The sound of their laughter carried on the wind, as did the scent of sweat and leather. Charlotte couldn't let them see her fear. She had to stand her ground. "Whatever happens, I won't let them take you." The barn door swung open. Dust billowed in as Charlotte Abbott stepped inside, squinting against the late afternoon sun. "You better come out, Rusty," she called, her heart pounding. The wild horse had been avoiding her for days, hiding behind the old feed bin. "I ain't gonna hurt you." Rusty's eyes shone like 2 black stones full of fear and mistrust. He backed into the corner, muscles taut, nostrils flaring. Charlotte could see the tension in his body. One wrong move and he'd bolt, or worse. "Just trust me, boy," she pleaded, taking a careful step forward. "I'm here to help you." Rusty snorted, his ears flicking nervously at every creak of the barn. The scent of hay mixed with sweat hung heavy in the air, filled with the smell of past struggles. Charlotte wiped her brow with the back of her hand, feeling the roughness of her own skin. She had been through enough battles to know that patience was vital. "I know you've had it rough," she said softly, lowering her voice as she crouched down. "I lost everything too, but I reckon we can heal together." Rusty glanced at her, his large eyes narrowing in suspicion. "You ain't fooling me," he seemed to say. Charlotte's heart ached. She wanted to reach out, to touch him, to bridge the gap between them. But she could feel the invisible wall standing firm. She wanted to trust, but trust had burned her before. "Please," she whispered, extending her hand slowly, palm up. The rough rope of her lasso felt cold against her skin, a reminder of failed attempts to catch him. "Just give me a sign. Let me in." Rusty took a hesitant step closer, and then another. The dust settled around them, the barn quiet except for the sound of their breathing. Charlotte's heart raced. "That's it," she encouraged, voice steady. "You're safe here. Just come to me." With a flick of his tail, Rusty finally approached, tentatively nudging her palm with his muzzle. Charlotte gasped, warmth flooding her chest. "You did it!" she exclaimed, tears pooling in her eyes. Rusty stood still, letting her trace his scarred coat, the roughness of his fur grounding her in the moment. The bond was forming, fragile yet powerful. She closed her eyes, breathing in the smell of leather and hay, feeling the weight of her loneliness begin to lift. But just as hope sparked inside her, a sharp sound broke through the serenity. The barn door creaked again. "Charlotte, you in there?" It was Wade Connors, her neighbor, and the man who wanted her land. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath, guilt crashing over her like a cold wave. She had to hide Rusty. If Wade saw him, he'd report her to the authorities. The stakes were high, and suddenly she felt more alone than ever. Rusty sensed her change in mood, eyes wide, nostrils flaring. "Stay quiet," she whispered urgently, pushing him back into the shadowy corner. "Please, just trust me one more time." Then the door swung open wider, and in he walked, his arrogant grin as wide as the prairie sky. "I thought I'd find you here," Wade said, crossing his arms. "Heard some rumors." The barn door swung open, and Timothy stepped inside, heart racing. "Billy," he called, scanning the dim interior. The air smelled of hay and leather, mixed with a hint of dust. Billy nickered softly from the far corner, his powerful frame highlighted by the fading afternoon light. Timothy approached, feeling an electric tension in the air. "It's just you and me now, boy," he murmured, reaching out a hand. But the horse backed into the shadows, eyes wide, muscles tense. "Easy now. Just breathe." Timothy steadied himself, longing to bridge the gap between them. "You know I ain't here to hurt you," he said softly, his voice steady. "I need you. We got a valley to save." Billy shifted but held his ground, ears flicking back, waiting, assessing. Timothy could feel the weight of his father's legacy in the silence, heavy and unyielding. He stepped closer, the sound of his boots crunching on the straw. "Dad believed in you, Billy. Said you knew something important. I reckon it's time we found out what that is." Just then, a sharp crack echoed outside. Gunfire. The horses in the neighboring paddock whinnied in alarm, and Timothy's heart dropped. "That can't be good," he muttered under his breath, and he dashed back toward the barn door. "Billy, stay close!" he shouted, but the horse bolted past him, spooked by the noise. The barn creaked ominously as the distant sounds of shouting grew louder. Timothy grabbed the rope hanging by the door, his hands trembling as he tied it around Billy's muzzle. "You gotta trust me," he yelled, desperation flooding his voice. "I won't let him take you." He could hear them now, riders approaching fast, hooves pounding the dirt. He felt the panic rising, like heat waves dancing off the dry earth. Billy pressed his muzzle against Timothy's chest, warmth seeping through the layers of his flannel shirt. "Thank you, boy," Timothy whispered, choking back a swell of emotion. The bond between them pulsed stronger than ever, igniting a fire within him. "We'll get through this together." Just as he finished tying the rope, the barn door slammed open again, and a shadow loomed at the threshold. "There you are, Anderson," a rough voice sneered. It was Richard Colton, flanked by two burly men. "Thought we'd come collect what's ours." Timothy's heart raced. "You ain't taking anything from me," he shouted, stepping protectively in front of Billy. "This land is my family's, and I'll fight for it." "Oh, but you're mistaken. You think this is your land." Colton laughed, an icy sound that cut through the tension. "That water, it belongs to us now." Billy stamped his hoof, sensing the danger. Timothy could feel the horse's heart pounding against his own. "I'll never let you take it," he declared, gripping the rope tighter. Colton moved forward, sneering. "You think you can fight us? We have lawyers, power. You're just a stubborn rancher, and your horse ain't gonna save you." The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows over the parched land. Timothy stood at the edge of the canyon, staring at the gushing well that had seemingly appeared out of nowhere. He'd never expected to find water here, beneath the dry soil and rock. Billy stood beside him, his intelligent eyes watching Timothy with a knowing gaze. "Can you believe it?" Timothy muttered, scratching the back of his neck. "Aquifer right under our feet." Dad was right. This land was waiting for someone to see it. Billy nudged Timothy's shoulder with his nose, as if urging him to keep the faith. Timothy chuckled lightly. "You think we've turned this place around, you and me against the world, huh?" But doubt crept in like the evening chill. "What if this is just a fluke?" he wondered aloud. "What if we can't defend it against Mountain Crest? They've got lawyers on speed dial." Billy shifted closer, and Timothy felt the warmth radiating from him. It comforted him, grounding him in the moment. "I wanted to believe Dad knew something special, but I reckon I'm scared, Billy." "What if we lose it all?" The wind carried the scent of dust and distant pine, a reminder of the desolation that surrounded them. The world felt heavy with uncertainty. Yet here was this horse reminding him to trust, to hold on. Suddenly, Timothy's heart raced. He heard the distant rumble of engines approaching, the unmistakable growl of SUVs. "They're back," he whispered, dread settling in his stomach. "Mountain Crest won't let this slide. They'll come for the water." Billy's ears flicked forward, sensing the tension. Timothy could feel his heart pounding in sync with the horse's. "We need to prepare, if they think they can take this from us." Then, as if on cue, the first SUV rolled into view, the sleek black vehicle contrasting sharply against the landscape. "Get back to the barn," Timothy commanded, urgency lacing his voice. "I'll buy us some time." Billy pawed the ground, unwilling to leave his side. "Go," Timothy insisted, his tone firm yet gentle. Billy hesitated for a heartbeat before breaking away, galloping toward the corral. The truck parked with a crunch of gravel, and Timothy squared his shoulders. The door swung open, and Richard Colton stepped out, flanked by two of his men. "Congratulations, Anderson," Colton called, a smirk playing on his lips. "You found your little miracle. But miracles come with a price." Timothy swallowed hard, determination rising within him. "You won't take it, Colton. This land belongs to my family, and I won't let you strip it away." "Not again." Colton chuckled, a chilling sound that sent a shiver down Timothy's spine. "You think this is about the land. It's about power, and you don't have any. You know that." "I've got something you don't," Timothy shot back, clenching his fists. "I've got a bond with this land, with the horse that showed me what was hidden beneath it. I've got hope." The wind howled, stirring up dust as Timothy stood his ground, heart racing. "You think you can intimidate me? I won't back down." The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the dusty yard. Timothy wiped the sweat from his brow, glancing toward the canyon where Billy had led him to that hidden aquifer. "We did it, boy," he murmured, his voice hoarse with emotion. "You showed me where to look. Now we gotta protect it." Billy snorted softly, his dark eyes bright as he stepped closer, nuzzling Timothy's shoulder. The bond between them had deepened in ways Timothy could hardly explain. "You're more than a horse, you know that," he said, scratching Billy behind the ears. "I reckon you're a part of this family now." The horse seemed to understand, leaning into Timothy's touch as if drawing strength from their connection. Yet, the warmth of that moment faded fast. Timothy's thoughts drifted to the looming threat of mountain crest and the chaos they'd already brought to the valley. They weren't going to give up easily, and Timothy had a sinking feeling they wouldn't hesitate to resort to underhanded tactics. He turned his gaze toward the barn, its red paint peeling and weathered. Inside, shadows danced in the fading light, playing tricks on his mind. "What's next?" he whispered, his heart pounding. He recalled how they'd threatened him, how they'd tried to buy him off with promises of a new life far away. But the valley was his home, and he wasn't about to let it slip away without a fight. Suddenly, a sharp noise broke the quiet, the unmistakable sound of hooves pounding against the earth. Timothy tensed, instinctively reaching for the rifle slung over the saddle. "What the hell?" he muttered, scanning the horizon. "Not again." Billy shifted nervously, ears flicking back as the sound grew louder. Then, through the dust and twilight, a cloud of riders appeared, silhouettes against the fiery sky. "Timothy!" shouted Sheriff Bradshaw as he galloped closer, his voice urgent. "They're coming for you!" Timothy's gut twisted. "Who?" "Mountain Crest." "Ain't no time!" Bradshaw yelled, dismounting. "They're coming fast and they won't be alone. Get your things." Billy reared slightly, sensing the tension in the air. "Easy, boy," Timothy said, trying to calm him. "This ain't the time to panic." He quickly glanced around for a plan. "Gather up the livestock," Bradshaw urged, scanning the approaching riders. "We can't let them spook 'em." "Try to intimidate us into selling," Timothy finished, frustration bubbling within him. He could feel the weight of their threats pressing down, like a storm gathering on the horizon. With a swift motion, he swung himself onto Billy's back. "We gotta move!" The stallion responded instantly, powerful muscles rippling as they raced toward the corral. Timothy's heart raced with each beat, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He had to protect his family's land, and he knew in his gut they were outnumbered. "Come on, buddy, stay close!" he shouted, directing Billy toward the herd. He felt the warmth of the horse beneath him, a steady reminder of the bond they shared. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the dusty ranch yard. Timothy leaned against the corral fence, watching Billy graze. "You know, boy," he murmured, "the old man was right. There's still something here." Billy paused, lifting his head, ears pricked up as if he understood. Timothy sighed, running a hand through his hair, feeling the weight of expectation settle on his shoulders. "I reckon I've got a lot to prove, and not just to myself." He looked back at the barn, where remnants of his father's legacy lingered like echoes. The barn door creaked open, and Timothy's heart ached at the sight. The faded tools hung on the walls, dusty but sturdy. "This place is our home," he whispered, "but it feels like a ghost town sometimes." Billy nudged him gently, his warm breath stirring the air. "You always seem to know what I'm feeling, huh?" Timothy chuckled softly. He reached out, letting his fingers graze the horse's strong neck. "Maybe you're the only one who does?" But doubt gnawed at him, a hungry beast. What if they couldn't save the ranch? The drought had taken so much, the land felt unforgiving. He needed to find that water, but each setback whispered reminders of failure. Just then, the wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain, long overdue. "Maybe it's a sign," he said, glancing up at the sky. But the clouds were heavy with uncertainty. He knew he had to dig deep, both into the earth and within himself. The ground beneath them felt solid yet deceptive, hiding its treasures and secrets. As dusk settled, the sound of crickets filled the air, a soft hum that wrapped around them. "We'll get through this, won't we, Billy?" Timothy asked, though it felt more like a plea. The horse turned, meeting his gaze with those knowing eyes. "You're right. We've got each other," he said, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. Just then, a distant rumble echoed through the valley. Timothy straightened, his heart quickening. What in tarnation? He squinted toward the horizon where dark figures emerged, horsemen, riders coming fast. "Billy, stay close," he commanded, the urgency rising in his voice. With a quick motion, he grabbed the reins, feeling the leather bite into his palm. What did they want? Did they come for trouble? He couldn't shake the sense that they carried ill intentions. His mind raced. Was it Mountain Crest again? Were they here to intimidate him into selling? "Whatever it is, I ain't backing down," he vowed. "Not now, not ever." Billy shifted nervously at his side, sensing the tension in the air. As the riders approached, Timothy scanned their faces. Determined, he stood his ground. Then, everything shifted. One figure seemed to take the lead, his posture arrogant and unsettling. "Well, well, if it ain't the prodigal son," the man sneered, his voice smooth like oil. "We hear you found water. But I'd be careful, Anderson. You're digging a hole for yourself." Timothy clenched his jaw. "Get off my land!" he demanded, his voice steady despite the fear swirling inside. Billy moved closer, snorting as if to stand guard. The wind howled through the trees, carrying whispers of uncertainty. Timothy stood on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon. "What now, Billy?" he muttered, glancing at the paint horse who nibbled at a patch of dried grass. Billy lifted his head, ears pricked, as if he understood the weight of the moment. A chill crept into the air, and Timothy's heart raced. "I reckon we're in for a storm," he said, but his voice wavered. The well had brought hope, but now Mountain Crest was moving against them, with threats looming like dark clouds. He needed to prepare, yet the thought of losing everything again made his stomach twist. "Don't you worry none, boy," he reassured Billy, scratching behind the horse's ear. "We've come this far. Can't let them take it now." But doubt gnawed at him like a coyote on a carcass. He'd fought so hard, but were they strong enough to weather what was coming? Billy shifted his weight, nudging Timothy's arm with his muzzle. The soft touch grounded him, reminding him of the bond they shared. "You and me, we're in this together," he said, feeling the familiar warmth of trust. If only it could shield them from the storms of greed and fear. Just then, the barn door creaked open, and Timothy turned to see Mr. Briggs approaching, dust swirling around him in the fading light. "Timothy, I heard about the trouble brewing," he said, wiping sweat from his brow. "Thought you could use a friend." "Always glad for company, Mr. Briggs," Timothy replied, forcing a smile. "I reckon the fight ain't over yet." The old man shifted his weight, glancing at Billy. "That horse of yours is something special. You listen to him, you might just find your way." Timothy nodded, but a knot tightened in his chest. What if it ain't enough? What if they come for everything? I don't want to lose him. Briggs placed a comforting hand on Timothy's shoulder. Remember what that horse taught you. Trust your instincts and trust him. You both got more fight than most. Just then, the sound of galloping hoofbeats echoed through the valley, sending a jolt of fear through Timothy. He squinted toward the horizon and saw silhouettes charging their way. His heart raced. They're coming. What do we do? Briggs asked, eyes wide with concern. Hold your ground, Timothy said through gritted teeth, but don't let them push you around. He felt a rush of adrenaline, gripping the fence post as he steadied himself. He wouldn't back down. Billy whinnied, sensing the rising tension. The horse backed away a few steps, eyes wide, muscles tensed. Easy, boy, Timothy whispered, approaching him slowly. They won't take you, not while I'm breathing. The hoofbeats grew louder, and Timothy's mind raced. Would they come to threaten, to intimidate, or worse? He glanced back at Briggs, who stood resolute, ready to face the unknown. We'll fight together, Timothy said, barely above a whisper, as he felt the soft muzzle of Billy nuzzle his shoulder. A sudden roar split the air, shattering the calm. Timothy's heart dropped. They're not just here to talk. Anna stands at the barn door, watching the 3 Mustangs graze in the evening light. The gray, Storm, lifts his head, ears pricked forward. For the first time, he doesn't flinch when she moves. She smiles, feeling the rope in her hands. Tomorrow they'll try the halter, but tonight, trust is enough.